Welcome to the Ageless Pursuit Project.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ageless Pursuit Project. I'm super excited to have everybody here today. I have my co-host Cody Small with me this week, which is awesome. We also have two special guests with us today, two doctors of chiropractic. Dr. Ryan Bones, that is his real name, by the way, for the listeners and the watchers. Not a nickname, real name. And Dr. Sarah Zwink.
Nailed it.
Perfect.
Gosh.
Well, with that being said, now that I've done my job and I didn't screw it up, I'd like to turn it over to you guys for a quick introduction and welcome you to our podcast.
Absolutely. Ladies first.
Well, as you said, Greg, my name is Dr. Sarah Zwink. I'm an upper cervical chiropractor. We'll get into what that fancy word means probably later at some point. New here to the Coeur d'Alene area, or newly back. Born and raised in Alaska. Spent some time in South Carolina for chiropractic school. Moved to Dallas to start my career. Really missed fresh air and people that I appreciate and clean water. So I moved my ass back up here about 25 days ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any listeners in Dallas. I think we're good.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, we will after this, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I love all of my Dallas people so much.
There's your connection.
We love you too.
Quick disclaimer. Yeah. Dallas is great, by the way.
Dallas is an awesome city.
It was a good chapter, but I'm happy to be here.
I am also a chiropractor as well, but I'm a full spine chiropractor, and we'll kind of dive into the differences between those. But I have Beyond Bones Chiropractic. That's in Coeur d'Alene, and I've been in practice for about 9 years now. I did my undergrad at Nebraska, did my doctorate in Dallas, Texas, actually, so I have a Dallas connection as well, and then moved up here in 2015. Didn't know a soul, just thought it looked nice on Apple Maps. It had everything I wanted. I grew up in South Dakota on a farm and ranch, so I've always loved mountains and lakes and trees, but never got any my entire life until I got to move here and started Beyond Bones Chiropractic, and it's been an absolute pleasure to serve the North Idaho community for the last 9 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so you guys have a venture going on right now, a new location and kind of concept that you're building. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, first of all, people are always shocked to learn that we're not the same entity.
I realized I didn't even say
Please, Sarah,
also,
what is your...
owner and operator of the specific chiropractic centers of Coeur d'Alene.
That's good. TM. So we are not the same entity.
Mm-hmm.
We are both have our own businesses as chiropractors, but we are very collaborative in what we do and how we do it. And philosophically and fundamentally, we are in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. And so we're going to be opening a new office in Coeur d'Alene on 3rd and Spruce, if you know where that is, kind of by Real Life Church. But we're building out and we're going to be sharing that space as a collaborative effort towards bettering the health, specifically the nervous system and spinal health of North Idaho.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think it's so easy to assume that because we're both chiropractors, we're each other's competition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
right?
like I don't think Target and Walmart are necessarily concerned about each other. And I'm not saying who's who here, just kidding. But I think
Dillard's.
I'm trying to figure... I know that reference.
there's a time and place and a personality for everyone. And there are so many spines to serve and so many people in the community that, I think statistically chiropractic still only sees about 10% of the population. Right. So for us to literally share the same roof, I think we're just straight excited about it.
100%. And it's already been beneficial for both of us because we both have connections, passions, drive that we can kind of feed off of each other. And so I think you mentioned, you were talking about the list, which is a new initiative that we're doing to support local businesses right now as we start this out. And Sarah can tell you more because it's an initiative that she brought from Dallas that she was doing there.
So the list is a weekly community feature. Most often it is local businesses, although we will be incorporating local nonprofits as well.
Excellent.
And we go into their space and we highlight what they do, maybe a little bit of their story. It's on Reels, so it's whatever we can fit in 3 minutes of content.
She does a good job editing.
I appreciate you. And share about them every single week on both of our platforms and whoever we're featuring. And we also include a giveaway aspect of it because I think that what's our new tagline?
Supporting local should have perks.
There we go. Perfect.
Love it.
And so I did this for the last year in Dallas, and it was a super fun way to get involved in the community. Mm-hmm. But also I think something that we both stand by personally and professionally is the importance of community when it comes to health, when it comes to both physical and mental health. And I think so often it's so easy to be focused on what makes us different in this day and age, forgetting that the vast majority of things we actually are alike in. And so being able to highlight businesses who are serving our same shared community is a way to help create community and highlight people who maybe their business needs it, maybe it doesn't, but it's just a way to remind each other that we're all in this together. And then, like, who doesn't love a giveaway?
Yeah.
So it's called The List CDA because it's delivered via email every week outside of the social media posts. I think the fun thing is also it's literally just that giveaway email. We don't use the addresses for marketing like I think people might think. We don't even leverage it as much as one could for having a long list of emails. It's simply providing that value and creating that community and having fun with some giveaways as well.
Creating some positivity.
Yeah.
Love it. It's a really clever idea.
We're definitely, obviously, given our space and everything, of the mindset that the rising tide lifts all ships. And so the more we can help other people be successful, the more we can help each other be successful, the better it's going to be across the board. And that goes for not only businesses, but our patients as well.
That's excellent. So let's talk a little bit about your patients. Sarah, starting with you.
Sure.
Who walks through the door looking for help? Like, what's your clientele like?
Oh, I love this one. Okay, so have you ever met like a woman in her late 40s who's really overstimulated by her children and is trying to figure out, hold on, I'm getting a little bit older and my kids are now in elementary school and I also don't even necessarily know who I am anymore, and also why am I anxious all the time and I still get migraines?
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple doctors.
So, like,
Has my wife come in to see you?
Like
80%
standard
of-
operating procedure for
Yeah.
most women over 40.
Right, and how unfortunate is that is like a standard operating procedure, nor should it be. So, Dr. Ryan mentioned earlier, or may have mentioned earlier, that I'm an upper cervical chiropractor. What that means, upper cervical means top of the neck. Cervical, like Latin for neck. And so I'm looking at the very bottom of the skull, very top of the neck, those top two vertebrae, because that's where the brainstem lives. There's also blood flow and CSF flow to the brain. All of these things, especially for migraine patients, but also for people who have like different chronic health struggles. All of these things, if there's a structural issue at that level, it can exacerbate a health problem. So without going off for too long or too into the weeds of it.
the weeds is the best
weeds.
part.
Yeah, we're here for the
I was
weeds.
trying to... Okay. It's my favorite
Do
subject.
it. Nerd out.
Oh, no. All this to say, though, I see a lot of migraine patients, but if you notice online, my handle is the anxiety advocate, because I never got migraines, but I did get panic attacks for over 20 years. Wow. And when I entered chiropractic school, I don't know if you know the story. When I entered chiropractic school, I did not know I was going to specialize in this focus. I very much probably was going to practice closer to the way Dr. Ryan does. I really resonate with the way he practices as well, really specific and gentle. And then I met a group of docs who practiced this way and got into that type of care. And it was the first time that I was like, oh, you mean I don't need to like lie on the floor shaking when I'm getting overstimulated because I don't know what to do? And I learned really intimately that connection between the brainstem, which is where like that fight and flight, rest and digest is controlled, and then the entire rest of your not just physical health but mental health. And so for me, it's really important to tie in that mental health is brain health. And when I say brain health, that inherently means nervous system health. So we do something in the office called functional nervous system testing, where we use infrared thermography to see, is your body able to even like correctly adapt to what's going on around you, or are you kind of stuck in that fight and flight? Again, that fight and flight is the opposite of healing. And so when we talk about someone who has a chronic health struggle, they're likely stuck in that fight and flight, which also can feel like being overstimulated all the time or being in survival mode. So to bring it back to that, like, mom in her late 40s that's feeling overstimulated and in survival mode, right, high chance that there might be a problem at the very top of her neck.
Fascinating.
So I have a question, and I don't know if this is even related or not, but it piqued a thought that I had. So I've been hearing a lot more lately about like mast cell. I don't know what the disease or whatever it is that's called. Essentially, what I've learned of that is that it's the similar type of thing where your body's in this like fight or flight mode, right? But what people don't actually realize is that, because I think a lot of people would initially say, well, that's just my, that's just like, my brain functioning in that way. I mean, I have the hormones, the adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. But what happens with this mast cell, and I correct me if I'm wrong for the people that know, they'll let me know in the comments, but I don't know if it's mast cell disease or whatever it is, but what happens is your body at a cellular level becomes stuck in a fight or flight mode. So your cells are actually rewired to be in fight mode. So it's not a matter of just addressing a panic attack or maybe changing your hormonal, like you have to actually, so there's a lot of new studies and new kind of practices that are coming out that are around actually like rewiring your cells to exit that fight or flight mode. So that's super fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, to me, that question comes down to why is the body feeling the need to be in the defense to protect itself at all time? So yeah, when we're talking about something, when we talk nervous system, we're talking about the thing that controls every single thing in our body. I mean, oftentimes, I remember like in school, we learned this little like pyramid of the base is like you can go days without food or weeks without food and days without water and minutes without air, but you can't, like you literally can't exist if your nervous system stops functioning. And so when we talk about cellular health, right, that's also like the tiniest level that you could get to respond to the kind of like motherboard computer that is the nervous system. So yeah, to me that question is, when it comes to mast cell activation, the question is what internally is happening that the body needs to, like on a cellular level, be on the defense.
Totally. Yeah. And that could be a multitude of different things,
Totally.
right? And so with that being said too, I think that the reason why it's kind of been a topic that my wife and I have discussed a lot lately is that, you know, again, going back to kind of the things we were talking about off camera earlier, is preventative health versus like reactive health, right? So if you're in a constant sort of pattern of addressing ailments or like symptoms, you're never achieving that root causality, right? And so when you're looking at like mast cell activation, what have you, like that, there's something deeper, a layer below where most people are going to attempt to address a problem or what have you. But you have to go beyond that and sometimes beyond that. So that's super fascinating that you guys are operating at a level from just like a functional practitioner with regards to chiropractic, but now you're bringing in other layers too. What does that mean to your mental health? What does that mean to your brain functioning? That's super. I've never heard that from somebody in your field, which is so amazing to me.
Which is what I was going to say is I think we should add some color here, because there's at least one listener who's like, I thought you said these guys are chiropractors.
Right.
What the hell does this have to do with cracking backs?
Hey, I
Right.
tried.
And so
I'm with you.
to add color to that, it's something that we have to explain all the time, because when most people think chiropractic, they think back pain or headaches, right? Or neck. My neck hurts, my neck's stuck, and I need my back cracked or whatever, right? Yes, chiropractic, sure, can be very effective for those simple things, but deeper, at the core, we're looking at the spine and spinal health. So your spine protects your central nervous system, your spinal cord, and all those little nerve roots that come out from in between each vertebrae. If your spine doesn't move the way it's supposed to move, it irritates those nerves. And when we get irritation on those nerves, essentially it acts like static on a phone line, to where the brain can't communicate through that phone line effectively to whatever that nerve might be coordinating. So an example I use all the time would be the stomach. Let's say the nerve to your stomach is being affected by what we call subluxation in the spine, which is irritation because segments aren't moving properly. So if that happens and that nerve's being irritated, the stomach might overproduce or underproduce acid because it's not getting the right regulatory signals from the brain, which is where we can end up with acid reflux. So acid reflux, believe it or not, is not a deficiency in Prilosec. It is in itself a root cause, like something's going on. The body is not regulating its systems properly. All of those systems are all under the coordination of the nervous system. So taking it back a notch, chiropractic's looking at how healthy and well-functioning the spine is, and our goal specifically, at least our goal, the type of focus that we have as chiropractors, and there's different types of chiropractors. There's sports chiropractors, there's pain-based chiropractors, there's PI-based chiropractors, there's lots of different stuff. As more nervous system focused chiropractors, our job is looking at how is the spine affecting that nervous system and affecting the entire body's regulation and communication at a spinal neurological level. So what we're looking for in our patients is not just, hey, does your back hurt? We're looking at, is your spine healthy and functioning well? And as a result, is your nervous system healthy and functioning well? So when you talk about like what kind of patients walk in, like it's not just back pain or neck pain, it's all kinds of stuff, because the things we're looking at are fully encompassing. So when you talk about a cellular level, those cells are acting in response to the nervous system. So if we rewind, at least from a philosophical chiropractic perspective, if we rewind all the way back to, okay, like what is the master control system of the body? Like what is square one? Square one would be the nervous system that controls everything. So, so many people do so many things to work on their health, to eat right, to exercise. But if at that core, there's an issue in the nervous system, none of it's going to be as effective as it could be with a clear nervous system. And so She focuses on the upper cervical, where we have the brainstem, and is a massively, massively important, arguably, I would even say the most important aspect of the spine.
It is.
You heard it right here. As a full spine doc. And so I adjust basically from the top of the neck to the sacrum. So I'm looking at the entire spine. But if I could only, I'll say this live on camera, if I could only adjust one bone for the rest of my life, it would be Atlas. It would be C1 for sure. Because it is an hugely impactful area. And I've seen back issues because of neck issues, you know, and I've seen headaches because of pelvic imbalance. I've seen all kinds of stuff where the spine it's a complete unit that all works together. And the whole body is a vitalistic perspective. The vitalism, by definition, means that we are more than just the sum of our parts. Everything works together. And so, you know, that is where I appreciate the more holistic approach that different brands or different doctors or providers take. Everything's got to be connected because it's all important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that from both of you guys. And I think that on that point, I think it's super fascinating because that's part of really the big mission that we have with this podcast is really starting to shed light and bring people in their various fields. Because right now we've had people from all walks of life, but every single one of them have said basically the same core tenet at some point in the episode, which is our body is made up of an entire group of systems that operate in tandem and in harmony and sometimes out of harmony with one another. And that's where ultimate wellness and life optimization and the ageless pursuit can happen is if you start dialing in those pieces. So I think it's super fascinating because in my opinion, I've said this many times on our episodes, but I think that there's been such a catalyst for change that's happened, I think, in our society and in culture, whether that be from, you know, we've talked about the implications, you know, post-COVID, right, where people started looking at their health and wellness through a different lens, right, taking a little bit more ownership in what that looks like. We've talked about it from a technological standpoint, where you have advancements in technology that is lowered the barrier to entry to where more people can have access to, you know, health data and biometrics than they've ever had before, right? And so the consumer has become a little bit more educated, sometimes good or bad, and a little bit more, I guess, empowered to pursue that. So for you guys as practitioners in your fields, for people that are listening, what would you say to them to say if you want to not just look at chiropractic care as a pop the back, crack the back, as you said, but actually dig deeper? Where can they start that journey? What does that look like? Because obviously you guys are here local to where we're at, but for those that are listening that are everywhere else, like how do they start that journey? Loaded question.
That's a big
one.
journey, and it's a journey that
We have time.
you know, chiropractic students go on, and the craziest thing is depending on even what chiropractors you ask, you'll get different answers on that. You'll get different answers on what that even means. Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
we punted.
I love that. Respect.
I
that
have
move.
my answer, but before I talk over Sarah, I want to hear yours.
Well, I was just going to say, I couldn't tell you the amount of times I've said, where are you located? Let me find you someone.
Yeah.
To be honest, and I'll probably do that until the day I die.
We're always happy to connect you with somebody locally.
100%. We have a couple offices across the country, so if anyone's near where we're located in, like Florida, California, Arkansas, then I obviously send them to my people because I deeply trust what I do. And I mean, to straight up answer your question, I'd say just check out their website. And does it seem like they're talking about what they do from a holistic standpoint, from not just a car accident or pain standpoint, but actually talking about how this is going to approach and support multiple systems within your body? And the website will communicate whether it does or doesn't.
We hope, yeah.
And the sad thing is, then the next question is, can you actually trust that? But that's where you have to kind of give someone a fair shot and at least look and do your little like Google searches of are people going to them for more than just pain? Yeah. And are they talking about the benefits of chiropractic for more than just pain?
Absolutely. And we were kind of talking about off camera before we started rolling that something that always blows my mind is how little research people do when choosing a chiropractor. I mean, you're talking about asking somebody to put a force into your spine and spinal cord. That's a big deal. And there are good people at that, and there are not so good people at that. I mean, your uncle can pick you up and make a bunch of bones pop in your back, right? like that's not an adjustment, and that's not what you're looking for in a chiropractor. You're looking for specificity, and you're looking for somebody who's going to do a proper evaluation also of your history, your body. They're going to know what's going on, why it's going on, what to adjust, what not to adjust, when to adjust and when not to adjust, because that's also really important too. And actually do a proper exam. So we're talking about like, hey, how can you maybe, to summarize, maybe how can you find a good chiropractor? Definitely ask questions, do your research, and are they going to do an exam? I don't know how many times people ask me, like, do I need the whole exam thing, or can you just crack my neck? Like, why do you want that?
Yeah.
Like, why do you want me to? You want me to
that?
just like, all right, I'm going to close my eyes. Ready? Like, we're just going to do something. The spine's a big deal, and you only get one of them. Like, if you go to a dentist and he messes up your teeth, like, at least you can get new teeth, right? But like, you cannot get a new spine. You cannot get a new nervous system, which is also a whole point of. It's shocking to me how few people actually take care of theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have a skincare routine but don't have a spinal health routine? Or how many people make sure they work out, they're careful about what they put in their bodies, and they, they'll go get pedicures, make sure their nails look good, and they'll do that every other week. But taking care of the one spine and one nervous system that controls their entire body, doesn't even cross their mind. And I think part of it is aesthetics. If you're gonna, like, personally, I think we look at ourselves in the mirror. We see our teeth, we see our skin, we see our hands, we see our feet. We don't see our spine. And so it's really easy to let it go to shit, and then until you are completely laid up, and then be desperate looking for help. A lot of times, in that case, there's damage that's been done. So people always ask us, like, why do you see kids? People are shocked that we see children or babies, newborns. What does that have to do with chiropractic? Why are little babies having their backs cracked? Not at all what's happening.
First of all, they're not.
Not at all what's happening.
Quick disclaimer.
Not cracking babies.
That literally doesn't happen.
But they get care.
And so adjusting a newborn is like checking the ripeness of a tomato. And it's just like sustained little fingertip pressures. But they have a spine, they have a nervous system just like anybody else does. And birth itself is incredibly traumatic, which I'm going on a segue here, but that's all right. I have my soapbox. Birth in itself is incredibly traumatic, especially for little kids. It's like a car accident for them, basically. And so when we're looking at spinal health, we look at that from day one, not from when we start having symptoms. So back to your thing about being reactive or having reactive care versus proactive care. I mean, chiropractic at its root is ideally designed for proactive care. I mean, most people use it in a reactive sense, but, a lot of people just use it for pain too. And that's like going to the bank to rob it and just taking the pens. You're literally leaving the entire 99% of that wealth behind if you're not actually getting your nervous system taken care of.
And that I'm glad you said that, because I have to confess I was that guy. I had a situation where I was at the gym. I kind of felt a little twinge in my back, nothing really crazy. Later that night, I woke up in the middle of the night with the most excruciating pain I'd ever felt in my entire life at that point in time. And I was like, okay, maybe it's just a really bad pinched, nerve or whatever, right? Let it go. Never got better. Actually got a little bit worse. At the time, I didn't have health insurance and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't capable of doing something like that, so I just kind of dealt with it. Fast forward about a year and a half. At that time, my right arm, which is where I had the impingement on my right side, I had about maybe 50-60% strength in my arm. Wasn't able to go back to the gym because I would be like, I couldn't. There was no balance there was no strength. And my wife, who had introduced me to chiropractic care, she has scoliosis, so there was always like kind of a correlation there.
Sure.
And so over the years, I tried it a few times. I like to play golf, and so my back would get messed up, and I'm like, oh, maybe I need to go in for an adjustment. Had that happen about 3 times, most painful adjustment I'd ever had in my life. So we're at a chiropractor with my arm. I'm sitting there just waiting for my wife to get adjusted, and I'm talking to the doctor. And my wife says, yeah, you should have him look at your back. And I'm like, no, it's okay. So I went to, real quick, rewind. I went to the doctor. They said, well, we don't quite know. We'd have to do an MRI. We'd have to do all this stuff.
Right.
You probably have a ruptured disc. And you could probably do surgery or something like that. That was the recommendation I got. And I was like, okay, if you guys remember, no health insurance. I'm like, I'm out.
Wild.
I'm out, right?
Straight to surgery.
So a year and a half later, I'm just dealing with like a weak arm, right, and pain. And and so we're sitting there talking. I'm like, nah, it's too far gone. It just is what it is. And so he's like, no, tell me what happened. So we're chatting, and he goes, as soon as I'm done adjusting your wife, he goes, I can fix you in 5 minutes. And I'm like, nah.
Bold claim.
Bold claim. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, whatever. And at this point, I'm like, what do I have to lose, right? Other than and my wife had been going to this doctor for a bit, so I trusted that he was doing some good work, right? And so he gets me on the table, pop, pop, fizz, fizz. All of a sudden, a rush of blood goes down my arm.
Yes.
Right? The reason why I say all this is because I was the person that until there was something catastrophically wrong.
Right.
And even then, I didn't learn my lesson because I'm like, thank you, I'm healed, right? I walk out the road, I'm like, I'm healed, right? Yep. And about a year later, it happened again, right? And so I come in, I'm like, hey, what's up, buddy? You know the thing, right? And so what I learned is that only will get you so far. So for some people that are listening, that they're stuck in that same loop that I was, that can be okay if that's what gets you in the door. But I think the important thing is once I learned that there is something wrong structurally with that area, and I'm prone to, and so I had to really focus in on that.
Yep.
And digging into how to actually care for that, how to train that, how to resolve that over time. That's where I got the more evolved answer. But for those that are listening, you were sitting there like, I get it because I was that guy.
100%. Most people are.
That is what got me in the door. So hopefully for those that are listening, if that's what gets you in the door, hopefully you're in the right door so that those folks like yourselves can get them beyond just that issue or that ailment and then down the path of whole body wellness.
Yeah.
Well, one of the quotes that you've said to me that's always resonated is the body is designed to work. Like it wants to work. And full disclosure, Ryan has actually helped me with my back because I was in the same state where lower back pain. It was, I was going on vacation and I literally couldn't carry a camera around without my lower back just being in like excruciating pain. And so I'm like, can you help me? I'm about to go to Thailand. I'm going to be doing nothing but taking pictures the whole time. I don't want to be in this kind of pain on my feet. So not only did he set up a program to help me get better, but we also figured out what was going on. And it's spine compression from me being on a bike all the time. That seat and my spine, constantly hitting that.
Absolutely.
And even taught me a stretch to help kind of get around that, and including a program to continue to go back and kind of keep me in line and stuff. So it's been a game changer for me. But that's the interesting part about like the preventative aspect of it. I don't think people realize, or maybe you could give some advice for people who don't have an ailment. Why should they go to a chiropractor? Like is there something like they should go see someone, not because they need a symptom treated, but something that's like, I need to make sure that I'm tuned up and that the body is functioning well now so I don't have problems later, sort of thing.
Good question.
Have you ever known someone who was, healthy as a horse and then one day they had a heart attack?
Yeah.
Or something to where, well, I've been healthy my whole life and then all of a sudden X, Y, and Z happens. Right. So often there's something going on behind the scene, and not to fearmonger by any means, but so often there's something going on behind the scene before we actually have symptoms of it. So if we're talking about the importance of the nervous system and how it controls everything in the body, there can be, two whole actually levels to this. One, we're not taught how to listen to our bodies and how to live attuned with what the signals our body is telling us until it's like this really loud, until your body has to scream, but maybe it was whispering for years. Mm-hmm. And then two, sometimes there are things going on behind the scenes before those screams happen, before those really loud symptoms happen. Because I'm willing to bet for you, Greg, I'm willing to bet there was probably something structural there way before that one workout that said, okay, well now we're going to have pain, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with you having it happen again. That's telling me, okay, so there was something a whole nother level deeper, which you even just personally experienced. So part of this, from both of, if I may, how we practice, is absolutely helping with people with what they are currently struggling with, and then also teaching them the importance of, well, we often say, like, are you just going to go to the dentist once when you ever get a cavity and then never go back? No, like, you still check in with your dentist to see what's going on. So many of our people will still see us on a much less frequent basis just to tune in, just to check in and make sure things are still maintaining, even if maybe their original concern's gone, but now we're in a preventative phase, or the vice versa. I've had people come to me and be like, look, this nervous system thing, kind of trendy right now, and I've heard that you somehow work with the nervous system. I want that. No, that's far fewer cases, but they're becoming more popular because nervous system talk is becoming more popular, thankfully, with all the pros and cons that come with that. So part of it is really just knowing that there's a lot happening behind the scenes that maybe we're not recognizing, might be a little bit of like yellow flags before they're red flags. And then again, as we learn how to listen to our bodies better, you'll sometimes be a little bit surprised at what tension it's holding that we don't notice.
Fascinating.
I will say the question itself, why should I go to a chiropractor if I don't have anything going on, also speaks to the verbiage that we're subconsciously programmed with, which is if I feel okay, everything must be fine. It is in itself a symptom-based question. If I don't have symptoms, outward symptoms, I must be okay. If you ask somebody like, how do you define health? I feel good. Interesting. Okay. So your blood pressure could be terrible. You could have horrible cholesterol. We could have nervous system interference. We could have all these problems. But if you feel good, you're fine. Like, is that health? Or is health in optimal state of function? Whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually, like whatever you find it, like health is so much more dimensional than just absence of symptoms, right? So I will say, how do you assess health deeper than how do I feel? And
That's
so
an interesting theme.
That is where, for us in our field, what we're doing, we're looking at, okay, if we claim that we are looking at irritation in the nervous system, how can we determine or measure that in order to correct it, right? Because I could say like, oh yeah, this is going to make your nervous system so much better. Yeah, Hadouken. And then all of a sudden like, yeah, it's better now. So for us, we use specific technology to actually measure function of the nervous system. We both use paraspinal thermography. And so that she mentioned earlier, that looks for signs of dysfunction in a spine. The analogy I always use is if you've ever seen like a fuse panel, you can look at a fuse panel in a house under thermal and you'll see certain fuses are hotter than other fuses because they have more draw on them or they're overloaded and they're about to trip. It's an oversimplification, but same thing kind of in your
really
spine,
good visual,
right? Like if you have certain segments that are overloaded or there's too much stress on that segment, there'll be indications on a thermal scan of that we can see. So we can determine and measure where we are having that or how we're having that, or we can look at different patterns. And so then the goal is to correct that and then remeasure and find out, did that change? Did we see improvement? Some people I use surface EMG, or heart rate variability is a really popular measure where we're looking at nervous system balance. People track it on their watches all the time. And so there's different measurements of nervous system health that are far deeper than just, do you feel okay? Right? And so that is one thing that I would say too, is like, why should people go or why should they get checked? Because truly, you don't know how well everything's doing until you actually get it checked. Right? Like you might say like, my car's not making any noises. Like, why should I get the oil changed? You're like, my teeth don't hurt. Why should I go to the dentist? Because we're looking for things before they become big problems, and so we can prevent them. And I think dentistry has done a really good job of this as a profession. Hey, take care of your teeth regularly, and they'll last, and you'll be glad you did. Chiropractic's done a terrible job of that. Like, we have not gotten that message out to people in terms of the spine.
Only see us if you've been in an accident.
Yeah. Like, oh, have you been hit by a bus? Like, come see the chiropractor 2 times and then tell me if it hurts again. Because chiropractic is just as guilty of living in that symptom-based model as anybody else is. How many chiropractors be like, okay, well, when it hurts again, come see me.
Yeah.
Right? Or on their intakes, hey, where does it hurt? So the entire paradigm, and I mean, if we're looking at the entire Western medicine paradigm, it is symptom-based. If you have symptom A, intervention C, and we can look at that with medication, right, or surgery. I mean, you mentioned about how you talk to your doctors or your MDs, and they're like, well, you could have surgery. In their paradigm, in their lens, and I don't blame them at all. What they are taught, they have really 2.5 tools when somebody has a spinal issue or a back issue. It's either going to be drugs to cover a pain or a symptom, right? So we can take the battery out of the smoke detector if you want. We can do surgery. We can tear out the smoke detector. Or you can go and try PT for a while. Those are your choices.
Yeah.
Right? Chiropractic's perspective is looking at that a little differently. You're like, hey, okay, the smoke detector's going off. I assume there's probably a fire
Where's the
somewhere.
fire?
Like, let's figure that out. Or if there's not a fire, if there's not an emergency situation, maybe the electrical to that smoke detector, maybe there's something wrong with the electrical system. Let's look at that. But here's the thing: if your house is on fire, like, let's say you get shot, absolutely don't come to me. Don't come to Sarah. Like, that's an emergency situation, and medicine, drugs, surgery, that'll save your life, and it'll be super important. So the analogy that I stole from Dr. James Chestnut, actually is a great chiropractor, is medicine, Western medicine's kind of like the firefighters. In an emergency situation, they have axes, they have fire hoses, they have drugs and surgery, and if your house is on fire, they will save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Very heroic.
Very heroic. However, if your smoke detector is just beeping, or maybe your house isn't on fire yet, but you have some serious electrical issues and there's maybe some smoke, they have axes and fire hoses. Like, we can come in and we could spray your whole house down if you want. Would that be helpful? Not really. Like, we could rip out the electrical. It will not beep then. I don't know. That's not really helpful either. Whereas chiropractor is going to come like, hey, let's look at the panel. Let's look at the electrical system. Is there something we can do to address this from a root cause versus just tear the house down? So it's different paradigms. And I think based on the drug commercials that you'll see every day if you actually watch TV, if you have symptom Y, hey, are you a little tired in the morning? Boy, do we have the thing for you. Take this. You won't be tired anymore. You might die suddenly, but don't worry. You will not be tired after that. And so it's just a different paradigm. And that's why I also think there's been so much, I don't know, aggression maybe between the different providers and different disciplines. Is honestly, we're all looking at the same problem. We're just looking with different lenses. Mm-hmm. I mean, which is a metaphor for life, right? Like, they have their lens. And their lens can be incredible in that situation. We have our lens. We're looking at it a little bit differently. And our lens might be better suited to see X, Y, and Z, where theirs is QRS, right? And so everyone's got different lenses, but truly, we're all working to the same goal. Like, we all want to see people healthy. We all want to see people live better. And that is where working together and has a team-based approach when it comes to like healthcare, I think is the best way to go. We don't do any PT in our offices. We don't do any acupuncture. We don't sell stuff. We do one thing. We do it better than anybody else, and that is take care of your spine and your nervous system. And we invite other providers to join in on that team so we can take whole body care of people. I know I'm speaking for you.
I got nothing to add to that.
All right.
Yeah, actually on that, because there's so many components of health, how you exercise, diet, things like that, if there's an issue that someone's has that you can't necessarily address through, working with the spine or the nervous system, yes, how do you recognize that and say, I think you need to work on your diet, or I think you need to start moving more and exercise? Like, what's your process for that? Like, starting with you, if it's something like, say, traumatic or emotional that isn't just physiological, do you have a process for going about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that, going back to something you mentioned way earlier, Dr. Ryan, is in my exam. So I normally sit down with the person for around an hour to hour and a half, depending on how much we have to talk about.
Wow.
And that does include x-rays and like the physical portion of it, yes. But really getting a deeper understanding of what does their lifestyle look like and what struggles do they have, so that I know exactly who I should refer them to. I can't mandate that someone sees a therapist, but I also will draw a pretty firm line from the get-go that I'm not going to pretend to be their therapist, even though we might have mental health-based conversations.
And you can recognize that.
Pretty quickly. And I would say somewhere between 80 and 90% of the people I see absolutely have a therapist. And I will talk to the therapist and we'll talk about what, how can we support each other best. And that is one of the things you talked about too, is we kind of stay in our lane because we are very good at what we both do. And also we want to work with people who are also very good at what they both do. And I think something that is one of my favorite things to watch is someone goes under care and we their nervous system becomes more expansive and adaptable is there's more ease in them making those harder health decisions. There's more space for them and more capacity for them to process stress. So then I have some patients who finally start seeing a therapist or acupuncturist, and then I talk with their provider and we talk about how it's a night and day experience, because now they actually have the capacity to process things that maybe they didn't have before. And same thing with the nutrition or physical standpoint. Maybe they have like the energy now to work out, or also like maybe they aren't in as much pain so they can actually work out. So it's making sure that I am as well connected. And this honestly kind of goes back to the list CDA as well, that I'm as well connected in the community as I can be, so that the moment someone has a concern that isn't in my wheelhouse but is connected to their health, that I have a place that I'm confident enough to connect them with.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad you said that about capacity, because I think that's an important thing. We talk about it quite a bit. One of the metaphors we use is like, everybody imagine they have their own bucket, right? And so we've talked about it from an anti-aging standpoint in the past, where your body has so much capacity through its natural means to sort of like stave off aging in some way, shape, or form, and then things like free radicals, stress, and oxidative, all these things happen. It's kind of like it drills holes into your bucket, right, and leaks out. We've done a video on that, right? We call it the leaky bucket video. But then in the other side of it too is when we talk about overall health and wellness, we talk about that bucket as well from the other perspective, in the fact of, all these things that happen in life, whether it's your diet, whether it's your sleep patterns, whether it's your environmental factors, whether it's stress, whether it's relationships, trauma, whatever it might be. All of these things are components to filling this bucket up, right? And so the challenge that people face is when they're sort of presented a challenge of, let's say, losing weight, or improving their health and wellness, right? Let's just use that. Well, if you don't have capacity within that bucket, that's why it feels impossible for people, because it isn't just the matter of I have to decide to go to the gym. You're dealing with personal stress. You're dealing with environmental factors. You're dealing with physiological factors and so on. And so there has to be mechanisms in place, and that's why I'm so fascinated by what you guys do, because it seems almost, I don't want to use this term, it almost seems too easy from a chiropractic standpoint to just focus on adjustment, right? Yeah. It's actually really rad to see that, like, you guys are looking at it from, like, we're you're creating an environment and a community to where there are multiple avenues of attack to reduce the capacity that within that bucket, not capacity, reduce what's in the volume of the bucket, right? So that you can increase capacity. Yeah, thank you. My capacity is full right now. So that is so fascinating, because that to me, I believe is I would say a relatively new concept, not just within your guys' field. This is the first time I've heard it from your field, but I think just in general in wellness. We talk about like modern wellness, right? This is something I'm seeing really take almost a grassroots approach now, and I'm seeing it being infused into all of these different industries. And I think that's amazing, because now you have a community of, whether it's chiropractors or whether it's a personal trainer or a nutritionist or Dr. Cody, doctor of osteopathy, whatever it might be, everybody is starting to breathe these same sort of ideologies to mind, and now there creates this symmetry where you can leverage your expertise, but now you have a complement to somebody in another field that understands it from that perspective. And ultimately, the people that win in this is the end user, the patient, the client.
As it should be.
Which is awesome.
Right, as it should be.
Yeah.
So that actually reminds me of one of my favorite analogies that I use with patients. You say bucket, I said bathtub. We are basically a bathtub.
Bigger bucket.
We're a bathtub, right? And let's put it like this way: your body's a bathtub. The water coming in, I'll say, is stress. And now, when people hear stress, they often think like stress at work, or I'm not stressed. Stress can be emotional stress. It can be physical stress. It can be the posture we have at work all day. It can be the time we crashed on the snowboard. It can be I tripped off the curb, or whatever. And then there can also be the chemical stress. That's what we put in our bodies, on our bodies, around our bodies. All of that has different stresses on the body. So stressors, we'll put it like that. And all those stressors combine to start trying to fill up this bathtub. If that bathtub overflows, we got problems, right? So that might be now we're having outward symptoms, or our back goes out, or whatever it might be. People will tell me all the time, like, all I did was pick up a sock. it's got nothing to do with the sock. It's the 20 years leading up to the sock. And it's all cumulative. There's a great book if you want to read it. It's a deep book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about how chemical, physical, emotional stressors, they all play into effect on our body. And the bathtub has a drain. We're designed to handle this stress. We're designed to handle an amount of stress, let's say in the bathtub analogy, per minute. So water's coming into the bathtub. There's a drain for that. But if the stress is coming in faster than our body is able to get rid of it, we're going to overflow. And so from a chiropractic perspective, one of the things that we're looking to do is, I'm not going to necessarily probably control the amount of stress coming into your life. You're going to have to do that. But if I can help increase your body's capacity for stress, like if I can make your bathtub bigger or I can make your drain more effective, I can help you handle more. And so that's kind of where we're coming from, is it's all cumulative, it's all stress, and that bathtub can get filled up really, really fast. Look at what's coming in. And so what are you putting in and on and around your body? What are you putting in, on, and around your mind? And what kind of physical environment are you keeping yourself in? Or physical state are you keeping yourself in? And then what are you doing to get rid of that stress? Hell, for me, that's like go sit out in the woods for like an hour. I have this thing I do. It's called doing nothing. So I go out in the woods and I just sit and I just do nothing for like an hour. And it's
like meditating.
It's an amazing hour. It could be meditating. I don't think I'm good enough to meditate because I have like this idea in my head of what I think meditation is.
We'll talk about that on the car ride home.
Yeah. I literally just like sit there and stare at the birds. So that's for me. Or for somebody it might be dancing, or for somebody it might be fishing, or it might be whatever their thing is to get rid of that stress. Chiropractic's a part of that. And just like you said, it's all cumulative. Like we all got to work together. For our patients, the ones who are the most successful, they look at what's going in the bathtub, they look at how they're getting rid of the water out of the bathtub, and they're looking at how they can make their bathtub bigger.
One of my favorite questions to ask people is also, what does rest look like to you? And what does stillness look like to you?
Terrible.
And let me tell you what a reaction from a 40-something-year-old mom is to that. It's a big sigh and an eye roll, and I don't have time for that. And right now they might not have time for that, but then in 20 years, when chronic thing, or even now when chronic things are popping up, both pain and autoimmune and mental-wise, the question is, we have to have time for that. And I think that it's also, so stress is interesting in and of itself, and there's also really positive stress. But the question is always like, if your body doesn't know how to downgrade from responding to that stress, that might be where we have issues. And learning how to be still, and that phrase that is popular now, that rest is productive. I think that, gosh, we're just at like the forefront of this rest is productive conversation. And I think, I say this often. I don't mind working hard. I hate working long. If I have to work on the same thing for more than like 3 hours at a time, I'm like, give me a freaking break. And I'm a strong millennial when it comes to this, and Gen Z's even better. My boomer parents don't quite understand it. But I think that we are in a very sick society, and part of this, you talk about paradigm shifts, so worldview shifts. We have to talk really seriously about shifting the way we move through the world, shifting what success even looks like. Because if we have absolutely no space for rest and stillness in our life, chances are that also means we have a limited amount of space for healing.
Hustle culture doesn't agree with you.
Well, hustle culture can suck it.
I agree with you. It's why. So, real quickly, so do you guys think that this whole notion of what we're saying, where culturally speaking, right, that we're having these issues, is it environmental? Is it like why are we why as a society are we getting stuck in this fight or flight? Like, is it environmental? Is it physiological? Is it like, I think you guys are excited for this one. I don't know. It just made me.
Yeah. Are there any cultures that are doing it better?
I'm sure there are.
Yes. Go for it.
The thing is, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. The short answer is yes. I do believe it's absolutely cultural, because innately we don't abuse ourselves the way we do as a society innately. That is, I think, from a combination of 8 million things, whether that be parental pressures as we're growing up, like achievement. What does achievement look like? Get good grades, get first in the race, get into a good college, get a good job, do this, to where existing isn't enough, right? Like we have to be good at existing and we have to succeed in existing. And I know that's not entirely inherently American, but if you look at like the Danish, for example, they have, according to the polls and according to reports and research, they have the happiest kids in the world. There's a really good book. I think it's called The Happiest Kids in the World. And I think it's about this, about how they raise their children is very differently than how we raise our children in that sense. And the pressures that are put on, even the sense of just time. You think about like how we are with kids in time. Everything's go faster. Hey, get your shoes on. We need to go now. We need to do this. We need to get to school. We need to go home. We need to get home. We're picked up, and we're trying to pack so much in. And I will also say it's with good intention. Like we're trying to pack all these things in. We're trying to like give these kids their best life. We're trying to be our best. You know, we're trying to make the most money. We're trying to do everything that we possibly can. But inherently that means pushing the time and pushing the clock. And so I think from a very young age, we are programmed into a sympathetic or fight and flight state that we just exist in as an American society. I mean, look at like Spanish, for example. Like they take naps throughout the day, every single day. Like when's the last time you took an hour to nap in the afternoon just because that's culturally normal, right? And so, yes, is the answer to your question. I do think it's environmental, and I don't think it's just American, but I think it is inherently one of the foundations of America is hustle and hard work, right? Like we put a man on the moon, allegedly. We put a man on the moon, and we built.
Topic for another episode.
We built skyscrapers, and we did all these things, and that wasn't through taking naps, right? And I do think I would like to hear you speak on this because I think you're in this realm, but generationally we are breaking that. I think with each generation, kind of away from like. Yeah, I would say boomers, but especially like silent generation boomers, stuff like that. As we break away, now we're getting to millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha even. I do think we're seeing a lower priority put on that, and they're redefining what hustle might look like. Hustle doesn't have to be working long hours every day, like you said. Hustle could just be using their creativity or their brain in a smart way to create money or to create wealth or whatever it might be. So, but I feel like being anxiety is one of your specialties. I feel like this is your jam.
Mm-hmm. It's so multifaceted. And I want to pause for a second. I love, like, I just have the one parent now, and my dad is very boomer, and also I love him for it. And also his life looked different when he was 30-something. The food was different. I'm not going to make things too political, but also like
seed oils.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
He can go to work and provide for one family. And when we're talking about like socioeconomic stresses, if there's this omnipresent stress of, oh my gosh, how am I literally going to feed my kids tonight? You can meditate all you fucking want, but that stress and that fight and flight and defense response, again, back down even to a cellular level, is probably still going to be there because that is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs now, right? So anxiety is really interesting too because some of these things, some of them are focusing on spinal health and nervous system care, absolutely, and maybe that helps create the capacity for you to find solutions of whatever may be facing you in life. But sometimes, I mean, I just moved halfway across the country. My body feels night and day different 3 weeks later after moving back to the north than it did in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. Because I think living in alignment and respecting having relationships that support you and open communication and respecting what actually makes sense for you as an individual and having the ability and the privilege to live the life whatever resonates with you, I think that also can help decrease inflammation in the body and decrease that fight and flight response. But that also, like, that comes with a lot of privilege and a lot of, like, challenging maybe societal norms of getting the straight A's and going to the school your parents wanted you to go to. So it's super multifaceted. And I think a lot of the answer is just coming down to, can we just pause for a second and ask ourselves, like, is this actually what I want? Does this actually align with me? And that answer can go a million different ways, and it probably will. But learning how to be almost selfish in a sense, because realistically, I came from divorced parents, and I often said they should have gotten divorced earlier because maybe I would have had like a better example of what love was, as opposed to them, staying together for the kids. Because I think that they thought they were doing what was best, and I do not hold that against them. And also, they weren't doing what was best for them as individuals, and that had its own set of negative repercussions, right? So there's two sides to every single coin, but being able to take a pause and have quality relationships around you. I mean, that what is that? The sum of your 5 closest people. That also has a massive impact on our physiological and mental health.
Absolutely.
Deep stuff.
Well said.
Deep stuff.
Really, really profound.
I think Dr. Bones said something that I want to start asking on every single episode now, and that is I want to ask people what their definition of health is. I really
like
like
that.
You will get a lot of answers. You know,
really
and
like that.
I can soapbox this all day. Health might be violently vomiting. Violently vomiting. Because think about this:
Right.
like you eat some bad chicken, right? Like, what is the healthiest response to that?
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
But do people typically associate, violently vomiting with being healthy? No. But that's your body expressing health. Okay, what if that chicken gets past that and it gets to the other side? It might look a little bit different, right? That could be health. What if that bacteria gets in your bloodstream? What's the body do? Increases your temperature, right? To essentially cook that bacteria out. What do we always want to do if we're throwing up or have diarrhea or have a temperature? How do I stop this? Right? Let me take something for this. I got to bring this fever down. I got to keep this in. Is that health? Or was health actually just letting your body do what it was designed to do? Because, like I said, believe it or not, we're designed to function beautifully when we give ourselves a chance to, right? And so this is where we look at where we, in our educated brains, can sometimes interfere with the innate intelligence that our body has to actually keep ourselves healthy.
I think of this when it comes to longevity and health as well, is that the more you know what your personal baselines are, the more we can make better educated decisions down the way. For example, my core body temperature is normally 97.1. So if I have a fever of 99.9, that's like probably an actual response going on in my system.
Yeah,
However,
my wife's the same.
100%. However, if your core body temp is higher than that, maybe even closer to 99 or higher 98s, a 99.9 might actually just be a really mild response, and I wouldn't do anything for either of those personally. But all of that to say, knowing blood pressure is a commmmon one with this too.
That was where I wanted to go next with blood pressure and how messed up we are on that.
Correct. Like knowing what maybe I'll let you take this way, but what your norm is, so that we can actually know, is it out of normal range, as opposed to comparing you to a mass population and then just taking some generic average and being like, oh, you're high or low. Are you, or is this correct for you?
Like BMI.
Like BMI.
Oh, don't even
get
get
it.
That's a
Total
whole
muscle
thing,
mass.
My favorite.
right? I mean, and now we talked about, in your prompt, you used the word evidence-based and scientific. And so that's another thing where, I can go 2 tangents on this, but one, you have to be up to date on what that means, because that is ever changing. The guidelines are ever changing. I don't know how many doctors are still prescribing statins, but if you look at the evidence-based guidelines on statins and the latest research, it is not recommended, because you will have people with high cholesterol who are put on a statin, their cholesterol will go down, and statistically, research has proven they will die sooner.
It's crazy.
So don't worry, it was successful because their cholesterol was lower, right? Because that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a symptom to change. Our definition of health is normal cholesterol range. So we brought it within normal cholesterol range. Yeah, I know they died sooner, but their cholesterol was great though when they died. So this is where our paradigm needs to shift a little bit, when we need to look into that. And so staying up to date on the latest research. Also, research in and of itself, you need to be able to understand how to question it and understand how to really break it apart and look at biases. Who's funding that research?
Who's paying for the research?
That's a really, really big deal. You can create a study. You can create a double-blind randomized control trial study to get pretty much whatever result you want, depending on the question you ask. The example I use all the time is, let's say I want to do a test for plants. This is also stolen from Dr. James Chestnut. I want to do a study on plants. What is healthy for plants? My criteria for health for the plant will be green plant is a healthy plant. Okay. If we add water, okay, that works good. Let's add some more water. Actually, when we add a lot of water, the plant dies. So, okay, water's bad for plants. Got it. Now the plant was brown, but we spray painted it and that turned it green. So spray paint is good for plants. So depending on the question you ask and how you frame the study, you can get wildly different results. this is where we again have to go back to how do we define health and how do we define success, and then apply research to that. Don't get me wrong, research is good. We should be asking questions. We should be measuring things. We should be wanting to learn more. Unfortunately, so much of the research is so biased and skewed to get an outcome or to sell a product or to push a narrative or to whatever it might be. You, as the end reader, educate yourself on how to dissect that and how to look at that.
I also think my favorite thing to ask is just why. So not only does the blood pressure medication work, but why is their blood pressure high?
Mm-hmm.
So
You get in trouble for asking
Yeah.
that.
Well, okay. Well, there's level. I like
Yes.
being in trouble.
Why is
There
it
are
high?
levels to
Exactly
things,
correct.
right? And so again, not only knowing like what is normal for you, but also just why. Why is this response? Why do you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning? Why are you waking up tired? Why are you restless before you talk to a room full of strangers? Or why is looking, I don't know if there's a mirror. I was going to take this in a whole different way, but I think that my favorite question is to just ask why. Just lead with curiosity. And you're right in like, are we asking the right questions?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's super important.
Yeah,
So
the
that-
statins thing is wild. I had a friend who, high cholesterol, they prescribed him statins, and within a few weeks, he couldn't walk more than 500 feet. Like
Fatigue, horrible fatigue.
lost
probably.
his ability to go on long walks, which was a very calming and, like you said, like a
Mhm.
doing nothing sort of thing. He lost the ability to do that because of the statins, but his blood pressure was great. I mean,
Yeah. Does anybody know why cholesterol increases in our body? Anybody? This is one of my favorite fun facts. So when we are in a fight or flight state, which we've all agreed we perpetually live in, right? Basically, at least in our society, most people. So we are in this perpetual fight or flight state. Designed originally for if you're walking through the woods and a bear jumps out, right? That's what it was designed for. Your body shifts into sympathetic. Your autonomic nervous system controls the shift between sympathetic, fight or flight, or parasympathetic, resting, healing, digesting, shifts us into sympathetic. The body does some amazing things when it shifts into sympathetic. Increases our blood pressure to better perfuse our muscles so we can get more oxygen to our muscles so we can run and evade. Brilliant. Dilates our pupils so we can see better, pick up more light. Brilliant. It also increases our cholesterol. It does that, at least in my understanding, does that to essentially make our blood a little bit thicker so that if we are injured or we're getting mauled by a bear, we bleed out slower. Brilliant if it's a bear. It's not brilliant if it's the bear you live with or work or school or whatever. And now instead of being 5 minutes, it's 5 years or 5 decades of this. And so we're looking again at this problem, we'll put it this way, that we're looking at this symptom of something as the problem. The symptom is not the problem. The symptom is a symptom of the problem. And that is what we need to figure out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'd like to kind of circle the wagon now, kind of bring everybody back. There's been a lot that's said in this that's super helpful. A couple of things I want to tap on, and this kind of to close out too. I would love for each of you to share. Where I'm going with this is that I think you said like educating yourself, researching, understanding what how to look at that information. I think that's brilliant. I think that's also very overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is.
And so you also said ask why, right? So I look at that as like we like to figure out a way to sort of leave our audience, our listeners with a couple little tools in their tool belt, right? So I'll leave it one for you, Dr. Bones, one for you, Dr. Sarah. Just like if there's one thing that somebody could do, whether that's how to better understand maybe the research or how to ask themselves or their providers the right question, what would be the one recommendation that you guys would recommend people that are listening? And I'll start with you, Dr. Sarah.
Gosh, I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
The type of person I am.
Overachiever. I love it.
I know. Okay, we're working on that still. Thanks, Greg. This is so fun, and especially for women, asking why and challenging people can be terrifying for a million different reasons. But I think starting with learning how to listen to your body when something feels off, and really learning to trust that gut reaction and that intuition. And I know it's tiring and expensive and time consuming to visit different doctors. But if you have that gut feeling something's off, or you're not being told the full truth, or it's just not resonating with what you internally know you need, then I do implore you to pause and ask why and trust your own gut reaction with that. How many times have we seen people go into surgery that maybe there was another option, or take a drug that maybe there was a different or better option for them? So pausing and trusting themselves. And then a second thing from more of like just for a daily, the first kind of tip I tell people, my patients along this journey is to gamify slowing down. So like, how slowly can you make the bed? Like, how slowly can you unload the dishwasher? I think you mentioned earlier, Dr. Ryan, of we're like always in a rush, like put your shoes on and get in the car and all these things. And realistically, 30 seconds normally doesn't make a difference to the outcome of where we're going, but 30 seconds in a deep breath and allowing our system to get out of fight and flight multiple times a day could make a decent difference in your health.
Especially with eating.
I love that.
Oh, eating.
Which is
God, I don't have time for that
I
tangent.
don't have time for that, but eating slowly has a ton of biological benefits.
Yeah.
From the way our body interprets the food, our saliva interprets the food as being broken down so your body can actually absorb it. That's another topic for another day, but eating slower. And I'm terrible about that. I eat like I'm in prison, but...
I inhale food. Ridiculous.
You don't look at Cody.
It's all those bike rides.
I know.
I know, right?
I need to
Oh, yeah, I biked 180 miles today.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay, I will give maybe an unexpected one. I'm going to give a hack for understanding research. And this is actually something that I've newly been using, and it's hit or miss, so, take it with a grain of salt. But ChatGPT is an amazing tool. AI is an amazing tool, and you can... Whoa. My alarm's going off. It's going off. Sorry.
I was wondering what that was.
My bad.
I thought that was just them telling us time's up.
No, sorry.
ChatGPT's listening.
So, yeah, ChatGPT. It is always listening. AI, in general, is an incredibly powerful tool. And a lot of people are using it for like the tip of the iceberg of what you can actually use it for. Learning is one of the things that I think is one of its most powerful applications. So let's take the example of research. You can take a research article, plug it into ChatGPT, and then given the proper prompt, which is AI needs the proper prompt, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm trying to better understand mast cells. Here is a research article on mast cells and their use in the body and maybe this application of some new supplement or whatever, right? Take this research article, plug it in, and then ask ChatGPT to break it down, explain it to you, what are the main takeaways of this? And then also, could you possibly please identify any possible biases, any possible flaws with the study, based on research guidelines? And ChatGPT will go, bet. And then 15 seconds later, you will have a huge rundown summarizing the article, giving key takeaways, possible biases, flaws in the research. And the more you do that, the more you can start to now, okay, just look at an article and kind of recognize some of these things. Oh, it had a sample size of 1. It was the guy's mom. Okay, maybe that's probably not the best study. Oh, they have a huge sample size. It was over multiple years. The more data we collect as a general in terms of research, the more data we collect, the more likely it is to be close to true, right? And then looking at statistical importance or statistical, I'm sorry what to say, like how important it actually is. So, for example, I might look at a research article and says, hey, this medication cuts your risk of heart attack in half. Okay, let's say my risk of heart attack as a 35-year-old was 1%, and it cuts it to 0.5%. Wait a second. So, okay, yeah, it cuts it in half. That sounds significant, right? I went from 1% to 0.5%. In the grand scheme of 100%, it's actually a very, 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 very small advantage. Where now we need to look at the side effects of what those might be. Mm-hmm. So understanding, whether something is actually, that's the term I'm looking for here, but
statistically significant.
Thank you very much. Statistically significant. Is it actually statistically significant? And so being able to identify all these things, but there are many great tools at our disposal, like AI. Use it. And that's for anything. You can plug in, hey, I want to learn about World War II. Use the 80-20 rule. Teach me, the 20% of the material that will give me 80% comprehension. 80-20 rule. Great way to learn anything. Plug it in ChatGPT. Will say, all right, here's 20% of the information you need to know to get 80% competency in this topic. Use that. It's not a huge plug for AI, but I've used it a lot lately. So there's my takeaway.
That's a good rule of thumb. So learn to exhale and gamify your rest.
Love that.
And trust your gut when you're getting medical advice, like that's important. And then use research tools that can aggregate vast amounts of information and give you the best outcome.
Don't be afraid of research.
Yeah.
Like it's not scary. Yes, it can be very boring. It's not scary, and it's important. And for providers, especially, it's important. Stay up on it.
That's really, really cool. I had a question I wanted to ask both of you too. So what is both of yours favorite success story? I mean, besides me, like who you've helped turn their life around or really helped
Want
heal.
to go first or second?
I'll go second. I feel
Okay.
like you keep turning it to me every time, which I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah,
Age before beauty this time, though.
I talk over a lot of people. All right, easy. My first year in practice, actually, it was probably my first 6 months in practice. I had a older lady that was coming to see me is for some back pain or something. I think we helped her with that. A couple weeks later, she says, "Do you see kids?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, yeah, I see kids. Of course, like they have a spine, they have a nervous system. She goes, I really want you to see my granddaughter. They're really struggling. So, okay, well, absolutely. I'd be happy to talk to him. She, okay, I'll try to convince my daughter to bring in her daughter. I'll have her give you a call. So I get a phone call. It's from this mom. Her daughter, Claire, was 6 months old and weighed 8.5 pounds.
Whoa.
If you have kids or are familiar with babies, you know that that's nothing. That kid should weigh
6 months old.
Yep, and weighed 8 pounds because
grief.
she had been diagnosed with gastroparesis, which, as you can maybe guess, is paralysis of the gastrointestinal system. She had been up and down the West Coast to Seattle Children's, to everywhere. Nobody could give them an answer as to why this poor little girl could not keep couldn't pass any food through. She would eat and she would spit it up. Eat, spit it up, eat, spit it up. Nothing would go out. So she was constipated. She had gastroparesis, and she had basically been diagnosed with failure to thrive, which is where they said, "Hey, your kid's gonna die. We don't know what to do. Good luck."
Good grief.
And so, as a literal last resort, they called me, and when we first saw baby Claire, she had a feeding tube. She was on multiple medications for the constipation and for acid reflux and for a number of other things. They were doing everything they could in their paradigm, in their mindset, to help this girl. And I said, "Has anybody looked at her nervous system?" She said, "No." Which, is wild when you think about it. It's been to all these doctors. They've checked all these things. No one is checking, and in their defense, because they're not trained how, but how do we check the function of this girl's nervous system? So, okay, let's do it. Let's take a look. So we do our scans, and lo and behold, there was interference in two main areas, down near her lumbar spine and up in the top of her neck. And so for little kids, most often that happens at birth. It's just, they can be stuck in the birth canal, they're in an upside down position, like it can be stress. And all it takes is for one of those segments to not move properly, and all of a sudden things start getting irritated. Okay? So she had interference in these two main areas. So, all right, well, given what we know about the nervous system, we know that these areas innervate important things for the body to function properly. So let's make our corrections and let's see how she does. We start making our very small, very gentle, almost imperceivable little corrections on a 6-month-old, especially one that small. And then the coolest thing about chiropractic is we make the correction and we, let the body heal. Let's see in a couple of days. Let's see how it happens. First couple of days, she's like, "Man, I feel like she actually kept some food down last night." Like, "Hey, that's awesome. Okay, wow. let's check, recheck. All right, make a couple different corrections. Okay, let's see how she does. Hey, she pooped. Wow, that's huge. That's really big. Yeah, she pooped a lot. Oh, okay, cool. So great, we got food going through. Hey, she was able to keep down everything she ate yesterday. Oh, whoa, that's amazing. Okay, so over the course of a few weeks, she started just being able to eat and poop. And suddenly she started to sit. Oh, she wasn't sitting up either. So she started sitting up. And then she met with her doctors and they said, well, okay, so she's keeping food down. Well, you don't need this feeding tube. You don't need these medications. So she came off the feeding tube and the medications. We kept checking her nervous system, making sure things were clear. And today she is a happy, healthy, almost 8-year-old, I guess now. Wow. So
That's rad.
That's incredible. That's like miracle type work.
But it's not. And that's the thing. It's not. It's just her body's designed to function. There was an interference in her brain's ability to communicate her digestive tract. So that gastroparesis was basically the nerve to her digestive system was blocked. It blocked is an oversimplification, but interfered with. And so it wasn't moving. And so with that not moving, she wasn't keeping anything down because the body was recognizing, hey, it can't go down, so it's got to go up. And so as soon as we remove that interference and just simply allow her body to function the way it's designed to function, everything happens. That's not a miracle. That's just applied biomechanics and physiology. But when it's applied to your 6-month-old who you were told was going to die, it looks like a miracle.
That's wild.
That's amazing.
That's probably one of my favorite stories.
I can see
As
why.
it should be.
Incredible.
Wait, first of all, I love this work. God, it's like
It's so cool. It is awesome.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting here, not unfamiliar with stories like that, and I'm still just like, oh my gosh, tell it again. What's so interesting is my story couldn't be more different, and also is gastroparesis based.
No way.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was like, oh, the first one that came to mind. So mine was male, actually. I predominantly see women just because of talking about anxiety. But I definitely see men. I also grew up with 3 brothers, so men are some of my favorite patients. I feel like I've had the privilege of multiple men being like, it's actually really nice to be able to feel like I can talk to someone. So we love that. This was a male in his early 40s, gastroparesis, so digestive struggles, have tried all the different drugs, also couldn't drive on the highway without getting a panic attack. And you might look at him from the outside and think super successful, stylish, great apart, all these like things that we might societally might think, oh, someone is thriving. But internally, he knew, I'm just trying to get through every fucking day at this point. And I think my favorite part about this case is it wasn't an easy one. And this was one of the ones I'd see the name on the schedule. I'm like, oh, God. It took longer than I wished, because I always hope that things just shift automatically, and sometimes they do. But it took... God, thank God he stuck on past that initial 6 months, because it took probably around month 9 for things to be like, oh, well, I actually don't remember the last time I had a panic attack. Wow. And when you're talking to someone who this has literally been since he was 17 and he's in his early 40s, that now he, not only was it not happening on the regular, as in multiple days a week, that he would just freeze, it was, I actually don't know the last time I had one. Right. And I've put on 20 pounds since I started seeing you, because yes, I'm 6'1", and I weigh 130 when he first started seeing me. Because his body truly could not keep weight on, because not dissimilar to your story with the baby, there was just such interruption with the digestion system, and that's something we didn't even talk about. What's the opposite of we tend to see digestion shut down or become overactive when we're in that stress state. So I see digestion struggles are one of the things that is normally like checked the box of, oh yeah, and by the way, like I have constant diarrhea or a constipation. It's almost always paired with a chief complaint. But this was a story, all that to say, this is a story where I'm so thankful this gentleman decided to stick with care and trust me and trust the small changes he was noticing in his journey, because the difference to that of the baby is now we're dealing with 4+ decades of stress and a stress response. And then the extra level of this, then I started, I referred him to a different type of practitioner, and we started co-caring with him. And then hearing about the levels of emotional healing he was then able to go through. By the time I moved out of Dallas, we have a doctor in Dallas who was my boss at the time. He'll still check in with him at times, hardly needs the care anymore because so much stability has been introduced to his system. But it's one of those things where it almost, at first, I was like, it was one of those cases where I was like, am I even making a difference in this guy's life? And I'm super grateful that he had the, financial and time capacity to continue come see me, and that he trusted the process, because now at the end of it being about 18 months later, now this isn't a completely different guy.
Wow.
Like now this gentleman can interact and go, and he loves to go to concerts, but he so often was saying no to concerts because he would just throw him straight into a panic attack. Wow. And now he can actually go out and be social. And that might be a wildly different story than the 8-month-old or the 6-month-old. And I feel like these are stories we almost don't even realize are happening, like with our friends or people around us.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that was super impactful, because it was one of those things that you truly wouldn't know the struggle this person was having, because forward facing, everything looked fine. But internally, it was one of those, I'm just trying to get through today.
Wow.
I love the difference in those stories. In one side, there was not a simple fix, but a very direct link to that problem, and you were able to find the solution and then change someone's life. Yours, it was a longer setting where it took time and work to get there, but it had the same result, whereas life-changing and so on and so forth. I think that's really says a lot about the preventative and continuous aspect of what new healthcare is now. I think is sticking with it and not waiting for it to, creep up and become a problem or be symptom-based, but be proactive. But those are really powerful stories, like both of them. I don't have anything else. That was a
I don't know how you follow
podcast.
that.
I don't know.
That's awesome.
Actually, we should ask him about the NAD plus.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on that. But so background, I've started taking Kimia's NAD plus support, and then I can't remember the
Sirtuins.
There you go. Thank you. This is coming from a one Red Bull a day at minimum guy. I have taken Adderall in my life in different points. I've always struggled with focus. Always struggled with energy. Ask my wife, I'm borderline narcoleptic, I feel like. I fell asleep during an argument one time. She hated that. Oh, God, that was the worst. And so I've just always kind of struggled with mental clarity, focus. And ever since started taking Kimia's supplements, it just seems like it's just like a different light switch where it's not so unattainable to just sit and work on something for a little bit. The focus is there, the clarity is there, there's an energy level that's there, and I'm only halfway. I'm about halfway. I'm about halfway through the bottle, and so I'm the type that always wants to give everything. I'll give everything a good college try, but I'm about halfway through, and now it gets to the point where if I forget to take it, I'm like, oh no, now I can't do anything until I take it. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that. It's not like I need it every single day, but I can tell a difference on the days when I do take it and I don't take it. And I know it's going to be a part of my routine now because the ability to just simply get things done on a different level without chemical modulation has been significant. So I've been a big fan of that. So thank you to introducing me to those, by the way.
Yeah, and it's I guess maybe 2 weeks you've been on it or so, or
2.5 weeks? 3.
That's incredible. I'm stoked that you're seeing results. I mean, I take it as well, and I've experienced the same thing, even from a cardiovascular standpoint, being able to push myself harder and things. But that's really great.
And I love that it's not full of crap. I mean, I am
all natural.
I have my vices, obviously.
There's a Red Bull in my truck right now.
There is, 100%. Like I said, I have my vices. It's about cumulative loads, Sarah.
Yeah, so you can bring that in. He says, no.
I am healthy.
Moderation, right?
I'm healthy in
moderation.
so many ways. I have to give my nervous system something to do once in a while. And so what I appreciate about it is that as somebody who is conscious in general about what goes in my body, what goes on my body, around my body, stuff like that, I'm not trying to put a bunch of crap, a bunch of fillers, more than I have to, into my body. And so when it comes to my supplements, I'm very picky because there's a lot of crap out there. I mean, if you just go into Walmart or Costco or whatever, just grab something off the shelf, that could literally be sawdust.
Yeah.
Which is, read the stories on that. But there is absolutely a bunch of crap out there, and it's nice to know what's in it, where it's coming from, and know that it's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Sarah, you got to try it.
I've been on it for a month, and it's the cognitive side for me is the big change.
Yep.
I could definitely notice a difference, especially for me working later in the afternoons and evenings. I'd be done, brain checked out, no way I'm getting any work done. And last night, I think I was working till 10:30 at night, and I was like, I'll probably shut it down now. I don't like to do that, but I just felt like I was in flow, you know. So it's actually been pretty good. So yeah, you gotta try it, Sarah.
I'll hook you up.
Where's my bottle?
I'll hook you up.
Get you one.
We got a store you can buy it from.
You can buy it. I'll mark it up.
Send you a
I'll
link.
give it to you in a little baggie.
Send you a link. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for both of you.
Yeah,
for
thanks a
joining
lot,
us.
guys.
Thank you for having us, guys. Appreciate what you're doing with this.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Awesome.
All right.